The other kids all looked at me like I was mad when I came out of the beck. Understandable, really, as I was draped in pondweed and coated in green scum, laughing, dripping, stinking from the mud and filth. But they were also afraid. I looked beyond them and saw why. The Templars were now only about 500 meters away. They had come off the road and were now on the gypsy field. I could see their faces properly. I couldn't see their faces properly, but I could sense their pumped-up frenzy and their unity and their battle joy. Some of them had taken off their ties and wrapped them bandana-like around their heads. It sounds stupid now, but it had an effect on us. It was creepy and savage, and it made me think that maybe Roth was right about them being barbarians. "Take it easy, boys," I said, feeling the fear and the nervousness of the kids around me. "Just stay together, and we'll be okay. Keep to your lines. You big lads in front, the little ones behind. Keep tight. It's fine, they'll never reach us. Remember, Roth's just over there. He's watching. He can see them. He'll be there." I was babbling, but I thought the words would help. And now we heard them for the first time. A ragged shouting. Not yet the single voice of a mob, but individuals yelling insults. How many? So many. At least 50 of them. It wasn't like our lot. Our lot might amount to almost 50, but over half were waifs and strays. The kids in Temple Moor mob looked huge, not like boys at all, but men. Closer now, and I could see Gatto leading them. I felt the boys on either side of me bunch closer. Ross said that they would charge straight across the gypsy field as soon as they saw us. But they didn't do that. They came quite slowly. Perhaps Gatto suspected something. Perhaps he was just enjoying it so much he wanted it to last. 100 meters away, they stop. Gatto is talking to his mob. He raises his arms as if he's trying to calm them down, and he walks ahead of the others towards us. He's close enough now for me to see his eyes and for him to see mine. There's a moment of recognition, and then he smiles. The smile huge, open, almost friendly. "Hey, it's the messenger boy." The others who were with him back in the park begin to laugh at that point. Then Gatto becomes serious. "Who are these children you're with, messenger boy?" And so I'm going to have to speak. No one told me that I would have to speak. It isn't why I'm here. But I speak. "Why don't you go back, Gatto? You don't belong down here. If you go now, there won't be any trouble." "Good words, messenger boy. But you know why I'm here. And it isn't for you and these beck rats. Where is he?" Where indeed? The Temple Moor kids weren't close enough for the trap to close. Roth is waiting, still dangling us, the bait before the jaws. "We're not here to fight you," I say. "I can see that," laughs Gatto. "You won't be doing any fighting. You might do some hurting, but not fighting. Where's the man? Tell me the truth." I don't know what makes me turn around then. I must have heard something, but I can't remember it now. But I turn and see, of all people, Kirk, my enemy, standing on the far side of the beck. He looks back at me and smiles. There is something in his hand. Beyond me, beyond him, I can see other figures. Coming. A tall one, a fat one. But then I focus on Kirk again. The thing in his hand. A half brick. He looks at me, an enigmatic smile on his lips. Then he draws back his hand and throws the brick. I flinch, thinking he's throwing the brick at me. But it sails high over my head. I spin back to the Temple Moor kids. The brick descends. It's a good shot. It hits the boy next to Gatto in the head, and he falls, a hand on his face, red blood flowing between his fingers. What happens next is sometimes fast, and sometimes slow, and sometimes both at the same time. there is a roar. The whole mass of them now swell and surge and boil towards us like the billowing hot ash and gas from a volcano. There is a sort of frightened scream from the children around me, and I feel them cringe toward me, as if I can save them. I glance quickly behind me to see Kirk running, safe on his side of the stream, and then I look over to the hidden Roth and his battalions, and yes, at last they are coming too, jumping up now from their hiding place. But it is late. It is too late. And something else I notice? They are not all coming. Some have hung back, others have moved on slowly towards us, as if waiting to see what will happen, ready to turn and run if running looks like the thing to do. But there is nowhere for us to run. The beck encloses us on 3 sides, the enraged Templars on the 4th. I put out my hands, trying to reassure the children near me by touch, but I understand now that I have done a terrible thing. I allowed my own anger and despair to blind me to the damage that I might do. Paul! I turn around. Billy and Stevie are already in the beck, Serena and Maddie behind them on the far bank. Send them across! The kids! It's Stevie talking, looking more alive than I've ever seen him, his spiky elbows and knees working. I start to throw the youngest kids into the water. Billy and Stevie shunt. Carrie shoved them onto Maddie and Serena, 6, 8, 10 splashing across, some laughing, most terrified. But there's no time. Gatto's mob are here. And Roth also. It's a 3-way collision. Use us, the Templars, Roth, and his handful of close mates. Roth hits them from the side. Gatto hasn't seen him, so the impact is dramatic. Suddenly, limbs are flailing everywhere, fists moving, punching the air, punching faces, punching air again. A Templar kid, taller than me, wider than me, puts his hand on my face and pushes me back toward the brown flowing water. But my face is still slippery from the slime and pondweed, and his hand slides off and falls forward, carried by his momentum. It's easy to shove him into the beck, his hands flapping at the water. Then a punch hits the side of my head. I am conscious of the weight of it, but I don't register the pain. I fall to my knees and look up at the boy. His mouth, a lipless line of hate, is going to punch me again. But then a savage creature leaps at him, feet, knees, arms, hands all frantically beating. It's the Ure urchin, Skinner. He is fierce, but the Templar kid is too strong for him and throws him down. He raises his foot to stamp on Skinner's face, and so I charge at him. My head hits him in the stomach and steals his air, and he makes a sound, half a groan, half a gasp. I take a second look around me. This is the terrible equation, impossible to understand. Everywhere there are individual scraps. Kids clawing and punching at each other, gouging, scratching, slapping. Nothing glorious here, no beauty or grace in it, just humans brought to the level of animals. But I see a space and pull Skinner with me. We have somehow escaped from the circle of hell. Skinner's face has blood on it, but I don't think it's his. You're bleeding, he says, and I feel behind my ear, and there is blood on my hand, which makes me laugh. Run home now, I shout at Skinner, but not using those words, using bad words, and this time he does exactly what I tell him. I meant to thank him, but there is no time, and now I never will. And then I look for the other small kids, the ones who had been in my care, the ones who I should have protected. Most have escaped across the beck, and I don't even think about them. A couple are cowering down, hunkering into the glass like leverets, but they also seem safe for now. But everywhere there is horror. Weapons have come out, blunt clubs, rocks, wood, chains, but not yet knives. That is when I see Bates entwined with Mickey, Gatto's spiky-haired lieutenant. And in another place, another time, it might look as though they were lovers, not fighters, because they hold each other so close, their gazes fixed so intently on each other, and each has his hands on the other's face, feeling for its tender parts. And now I watch with horror as Bates opens his mouth and bites Mickey's cheek, scraping and gnawing at it like a cannibal, and I would have stopped it if I could. But then I see Roth, and once I see him, it is impossible to look anywhere else. He is transformed and shines with a cool, silvery, metallic radiance, like moonlight or mercury. Oh, but he is suddenly beautiful, beautiful like Lucifer was said to be beautiful. His arms enclose his enemies, and he crushes them, and two fall before his feet. A tall red-haired boy holding a thick plank of wood rushes towards him, spittle and noise coming from his mouth. There is a long nail at the end of the wood. Roth's movement is so perfect it seems more like music than solid form, and the wood and the nail go into the place where he was, which is now simple space, and the wood ploughs the ground, and Roth's foot breaks the wood, and his knee smashes up into the face of the boy. Two more punches, each slashing high to low, and two more Templemore kids are down, and one is holding his face, crying, and the other doesn't even move. But then I see the change come over the Roth's face that makes me shudder. Roth's brilliance has blinded me to something else, but now he sees it, and I see it too. There are so few of us. He sees that he is with Bates, who has somehow untangled himself from his lover, his meal, and Miller, and 2 or 3 or 4 other kids from our school. But there are still so many Templars, and now Roth's face loses that evil beauty and becomes grim and ugly, because perhaps at some level he realizes that what lies in store for him is defeat, and then that dreadful thing that comes with defeat. And maybe you can be noble in defeat, but you can't be beautiful. But still, a kick this time, straight out into the groin of a boy, and another backhanded, lip-bursting slap, and only Bates and Miller now are with him, and, strangely, me. How did I come to be here? Or was it he that came to me? "You've got it," he says to me, not a question, "because now is the time." I cannot help but putting my hand into my pocket where the knife waits for me. It would be easy then to take out the knife, to answer its call. But I close my ears and shake my head, and his mouth goes hard with frustration and anger. He's panting, a film of sweat covering his face. I have let him down. But before he can say anything else, a voice rises above the clamor. "Roth!" Gatto. And Roth smiles again, as if this is what he's been waiting for. And the world stops and watches. The two of them are alone now, 3 meters apart, close enough to spit if you have the wind. A sort of ragged circle has formed, more than 30 Templars on one side. Me, Miller, Bates on the other, and more broken kids in the group, silent or weeping. "You killed my little girl," says Gatto. "You killed my baby. You're going to be sorry." I don't know what to make of Gatto. In some ways he's an impressive guy. He has grace and power, and he seems more human than Roth. But maybe that's also his failing, because he shows his weakness when he talks like that about his dog. Talking like he wanted to cry about it. And I feel no sympathy for Gatto, because of what it did to me with the jaws of that dog. Then Roth says some things that I can barely bring myself to tell you. Some of the things he says are about what he did to the dog, and some of the things are about Gatto. And then he calls Gatto the thing that you can't call a person. Not now. "Nigger," he says. And I know why he says it. And maybe Gatto knows why he says it, but that doesn't make a difference. Because now he does just what Roth wants. He charges. And I know what Roth will do next. A tiny, almost imperceptible feint one way, and then a swerve to the other. Gatto will flare out the space, and Roth will put him down. But that isn't happening. Gatto is fast as Roth. That has never been the case before. Not fast enough so that Roth's moves fail completely, but fast enough so that his fist catches Roth on the point of the chin. Another centimeter and he would have missed. But the chin. Roth's head is so massy, so solid, that almost anywhere else and he would have laughed at the punch. But no one laughs at a punch to the point of their chin. In a street fight, you don't want to punch a kid on the chin because it means you'll break your fingers like dry sticks. and maybe Gatos are broken, but it doesn't matter. Roth stops like a clock when you take out the battery. His eyes look troubled for a moment, and then they cloud, and he falls to one knee. The Templars scream with joy, their tension and fear suddenly released, like pigeons exploding out of a loft. For a second, Gato looks like he doesn't realize what's happened. He stands back, suspecting a trick, a trap, and then, when Roth keeps his head low, staring at the ground, as if he's lost something vital there, Gato moves closer to him, his head high, a sneer on his lips. "Call me that again," he whispers, meaning what Roth said before, the terrible thing. And now Roth looks up at him, and even though the light is dim in his eyes, the Templars all take a step back. Except Gato. Gato takes a step forward. Mistake. Roth, still uneasy, unsteady, lunges, hurling himself at Gato's legs. The two are down together. Gato hammers away at the back of Roth's head, but Roth worms his way higher, his big hands reaching, clawing for Gato's neck. Gato is a tough kid. No one else could keep Roth this busy for this long, but Roth is Roth. No one can beat him. He's on top now. A sigh comes from the Templars. It doesn't matter that the battle till now has been theirs. All that counts is the fight between the champions. And Gato must lose now. Roth has his knee on Gato's chest, a hand at his throat, and Gato can only wave and flap his arms like a dying bird. It is over. I can see the light die in the eyes of the Templars. They want no more of this fight. They will go home now, dragging their injured and their humiliated with them. Except that Roth is not satisfied. He is feeling with his free hand inside his jacket, and I remember now that wide shape beneath the black handle. With a shout, he pulls it from his pocket. It is a fat-bladed meat cleaver, its edges ground razor-sharp. He flourishes it above his head. He's going to kill Gato with it. I realize then that I have to move. I have to stop this atrocity. But Roth changes his grip, and I hesitate. Now he holds out one of Gato's hands against the soil. He scrabbles and twists until a finger is isolated, and then goes up with the cleaver again. For a second it pauses, bright against the mackerel sky. And then it falls, and I have done nothing to stop it. Except that it doesn't fall. Or rather, its fall is caught. Roth looks around, looks up, his face filled with mystery, disbelief, utter bafflement. This was something he never expected. Miller. Neatly, Miller takes the cleaver from Roth's hand and hurls it towards the beck. As it turns slowly in the air, I half believe that a hand will burst from the water to catch it. But it enters uncaught and soundless. "Shouldn't have called him that," said Miller, his face expressionless. And then he just walks away. Why did Miller betray Roth like that? Is it really a betrayal when you're betraying evil? Maybe he'd been waiting for this moment for years. Maybe it was just a whim. But I think there comes a time when the corrosive burning works down to the part that won't burn, that won't corrode. And Miller had reached that part, his core. And when he reached it, he found that there was still something noble there, even if it expressed itself as an act of treachery. Now I turn back to the fight. Roth is lost, his arms still stuck up in the air as if answering a question in class. Ridiculous. He looks ridiculous. Who could have thought such a thing? Gato rises up from under him, and all the Templars, freed now from the enchantment of defeat, close upon him, and all I can see is the ripple of arms and legs working, like a soft machine. But there is no time to understand the soft machine, no chance to explore how it works, because a shape is rushing towards me. Bates, in a blind panic, runs like a rat towards the beck. He pushes me, and I fall back. I get up to see that not all the Templars are gathering around Roth. Mickey, his face covered in blood, a flap of skin hanging loose from his cheek, is alone. No, not quite alone. Didn't Roth once say to me that when you've got a knife, you're never alone? and in his hand is not that penknife of his, but a cheap, long-bladed kitchen knife. And I don't know if it's just some way his mind has mixed me up with Bates, or if he just wants to hurt someone, and I am easier to reach than Bates, who has fled across the Brownback, or Roth, who's still caught up in the workings of the soft machine, the Templars on him the way vultures cover a carcass. Whatever reason, Mickey fixes his eyes on me, and begins to run, holding the knife. For a second, I think about taking out my knife, the beautiful killing blade that Roth gave me. But I have already made that decision, and anyway, there is no time.